black tie used to be, it was considered the casual option, or the option that you only wore with friends, or the option that you only wore at informal dinners. It's all about silhouette. It's about the kind of lines of the body that it kind of paints on you. If you're into clothes, the thing that you are most interested in when a new Bond film comes out is what is his interpretation of a black tie going to be.
Yeah. In Casino Royale, his dinner suit was not Tom Ford, it was Brioni. The entire audience went, whether it's cortisone or dopamine, whatever it is that got set off, that set it off for the entire audience. And this is what Great Close can do, and the tuxedo is right at the top of that. I have edited a copy of yours, which was pretty firm about not wearing black tie at weddings. What did you wear to your wedding? Hello and welcome back to a brand new season of The Luxury Dispatch, the podcast that reveals the refined and the rare, people, items and stories that make up the luxury industry. I'm Tom Chamberlin, and today we shall be stepping up the formality and dig deep into black tie. Few garments carry quite the same sense of occasion as the dinner suit. Black tie represents one of the clearest expressions of formal elegance, and yet, like all traditions, it invites questions. Where did it come from? How strictly should it be followed? Where is there room for personality? And why does it continue to endure? To guide us through that world, I'm joined by Aleks Cvetkovic, brand strategist, writer, and one of the sharpest observers of modern style and tailoring. Aleks, welcome.
What a treat to be here.
Isn't it fun?
Isn't it glorious?
I know.
Yeah.
Look at us.
With our Dickie Bows on.
Yeah, I know. You and I, you are an alumnus of the Rake, and therefore you and I have spent just hours talking about the correct width of a bow tie and
Indeed.
Various types of barathea.
Pleats, trouser hems.
Absolutely. I mean, we've really gone over it all. So who better to have this particular conversation about a subject that everybody knows about, but perhaps doesn't necessarily understand or wants to really get to know it in greater detail. So where do we go from here?
Well, perhaps we start with the origin story? Shall we sort of unpick the mythology a little bit?
We could talk a little bit about the Great Male Renunciation, the end of the 18th century. Great fun, the Great Male Renunciation. Love that. Where basically everybody turned from wearing breeks and stockings and highly embellished clothes to something more austere and less embellished. Right.
Yes.
So this is the era of the French Revolution, where if you were highly coloured and silken and embellished, you got your head chopped off.
Indeed.
And if you were in Britain, you just were a fop, and they didn't like that. And then along comes the Victorian era, because everything was coaly and dusty and horrible, and so everyone turned to darker fabrics. But there was one great consistency that came along from all that, was
always in some kind of tailcoat.
Sure, morning dress.
Yeah.
For riding.
Yeah.
Frock coat, which frankly they should bring back, but that's a whole other topic. And what we know now today is white tie, so the evening dress.
Yes.
With tailcoat. So let's go with that in mind. That was how everybody was dressed. It was very formal.
Yeah. And men were always in some kind of tails.
Yes.
Is the key thing, right?
Exactly. Pretty restrictive. So something happened in the mid-19th century where this weird thing came along called the lounge suit.
Indeed.
Let's go into that.
Positively racy at the time.
Yeah, casual even.
Very casual, very informal. The idea of cutting the tails off the bottom of a jacket was in its time initially quite controversial.
Yeah.
Which is a bizarre thought for today. But as society was kind of loosening up a little bit and men were becoming a little more active, this idea of the lounge suit or the town suit sort of develops.
Yeah.
And, certain sensible individuals go, it's quite nice actually not to have to wear tails all day, every day. So it catches on. And I think at this point, we have to introduce a regular feature on your podcast, which is the monarchy. God bless them.
God bless them.
The Prince of Wales at the time, Edward VII to be.
Dirty Bertie.
Indeed.
My favourite constitutional monarch.
In 1865, he decides he's fed up of having to wear white tie and tails every evening at every dinner.
Yeah.
So he goes to his tailor, Henry Poole, the oldest tailor on Savile Row, established in 1806.
Still around today.
Still around today. Glorious place. He goes to his tailor and he says, I want you to make me something for informal, family-only dinners at Sandringham in the country, which in sort of the social context of the time is as casual as it can possibly get.
Yeah.
And they say, okay, we'll come up with something. And they cut him, the ledgers tell us, a celestial blue short evening coat, which is basically a lounge suit with no tails in this wonderful midnight blue colour. From memory, I think it was some kind of silk.
I do like celestial blue. That is better. We should bring it back.
Yeah, why isn't everyone using celestial blue on their sort of e-commerce websites?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
I'd like a celestial blue suit, please.
Yeah.
So this short jacket appears, which he wears strictly when he's not on show in a social context, and he loves it. And we then have to skip forward about 25 years to 1886, when the Prince of Wales takes a trip to New York and ends up mooching about Tuxedo Park, north of Manhattan.
Yeah. Which is, to give context, it's what people refer to as a sort of gated community today. It's where very large houses, very rich people. Tuxedo as a word comes from the Algonquin that means tuxedo, which means place of the bear.
Ah, love that. Great, it's top knowledge.
Enter the rake.
Yes, so he's mooching around Tuxedo Park and he meets a chap called James Brown Potter. And more importantly for this story, he meets James Brown Potter's apparently very beautiful wife, Cora.
Dear Cora.
Dear Cora, and is quite smitten.
Cora Urquhart.
Very good. So he's the prince is smitten, and he therefore invites Brown Potter and Cora to an informal dinner at Sandringham.
Now, the funny thing is that they went, because the thing is, if he at the time were to invite you to something like that, the men, maybe because he was American, he didn't quite know that, Edward was likely to try and have sex with your wife. So the fact that they went, I think, shows great balls. But perhaps you can't turn down invitations from, Edward VII.
Quite.
Maybe it's that
bragging rights. Yeah,
sure.
So they go to this dinner, but Brown Potter says, "I have no idea what to wear." He speaks to Henry Poole, and they say, Mr. Brown Potter,
as it happens,
we'll cut you a short celestial blue silk evening coat. He wears it to dinner. He loves it. The prince is very flattered. They have a lovely time. When he goes back to New York, he starts rocking this short celestial blue silk evening coat. And I believe he wears it to the Tuxedo Park Club, which is the sort of society club in this gated community.
Yeah, enclave.
And the story, which may or may not be apocryphal, but the sort of legend is that it catches on as the club's sort of informal uniform, and everyone starts wearing this short evening jacket.
Yeah.
It may also be the case that, royals in this point in history are huge trendsetters.
Yes.
And it had already caught on among higher society.
Yeah.
But it's a lovely story. And that, of course, is where our dear American cousins now refer to the dinner suit as the tuxedo. It gets its name from that locality.
Yes.
But, there's so many things just in that origin story that I find really, really enjoyable that we can, I guess, come on to. But the fact that it's midnight blue, it's not black, whereas we almost always assume that it's black.
I think because of the people call it black tie, they just assume that it is all black.
Which, of course, refers to the bow tie.
Correct.
Which should really be black. That's one of the things that I'm a bit of a stickler for.
I agree. Me too.
I'm not a huge fan of coloured bow ties.
No.
I think you can do it, but I wouldn't advise it personally.
Yep.
And the other thing here that is really interesting is the way that this short evening jacket, I don't know if there's any record of what the lapels were, but it was almost certainly cut as a reference to a smoking jacket like what you're wearing this evening.
Yes.
So it's sort of that jacket is again responsible for this really lovely kind of interplay between a smoking jacket and a dinner jacket, which we can talk about in a bit.
I would have guessed it's a shawl lapel thing, and I tell you why. It's because the introduction of peak lapels on single-breasted jackets can't have been something that Edward just was like, yeah, let's do that. I think he would have gone with something like, as you say, that was akin to the robe de chambre, which was the precursor to the smoking jacket, which had shawl lapels.
Absolutely.
a kind of small rope to tie around you.
And this is like another sort of really interesting thing in the kind of codification of black tie. There's two thoughts, but my first quick thought is I absolutely agree. It couldn't have been a peak lapel because they don't really catch on till sort of the turn of the 20th century, and even then they're initially seen as quite flash.
Yep.
Which a monarch would never be.
No,
and or a royal.
Yeah.
But also things obviously have relaxed today, and I would argue that the style of lapel on your dinner suit is not something you need to be militant about. But back then, one would never wear a notched lapel for an evening garment because it was an informal lapel that one wore during the day.
Yeah, correct. And so he would have eschewed the notched lapel in exchange
couldn't
for
have chosen a peak. Therefore, we deduce robe de chambre.
Look at us.
Yeah, indeed.
Detectives. Sartorial Sherlocks. One of the great mysteries of life is now solved.
Yes, indeed. Yeah.
Congratulations.
Everyone's been pondering.
Yes, well done us. Before we go into anything really black tie, because we're going to be talking a lot about lapels, a subject that you and I have spoken about for years.
Column inches on lapels.
There are three major types of lapel. Shawl, which is what I'm wearing, peak, which is what you're wearing, and then notch, which is the traditional or step lapel.
Yes.
I think that might be an Americanism, I can't be sure. But the notch lapel is what you will traditionally see on most jackets, especially suits.
Yeah. I would predict that for most guys listening to this, 70% of the jackets in your wardrobe are going to have a notch lapel on them. It's the conventional lapel.
Exactly. So let's go through, talk about codification. I love that. What are the component parts of a traditional dinner suit? Let's start with the jacket.
Mm-hmm.
So we have to have contrast lapel.
Yeah.
Which is usually either satin or
silk grosgrain.
Silk grosgrain.
Yes.
The key is that really it should match whatever your bow tie is.
Yes. Yes.
So there should be that sort of consistency in the sort of the kind of middle third of your body, and then that sort of softer coloured either way. So not as bright, especially with the light hits it. Wool Barathir for the outside for the main body of the suit.
Yes, and the logic behind the midnight blue, celestial blue is actually in low light it reads as more black than black.
That is very true. And I actually think just from a style point of view, midnight blue is really, really nice.
Yeah.
I mean, I know I'm sitting across someone wearing black, so I don't want to sort of...
Well, this is midnight blue.
Is it?
To confound you, this is midnight blue mohair, yeah. So it does read as more black than black. That was an evidential test.
There is an evidential test, and that's a sexton.
This is also the first midnight blue dinner suit I've ever owned, historically.
And Edward, of course, much missed.
Much missed, indeed. This is, I think, this is one of the first suits that the great man was not able to cut me because he passed away. But the new head cutter in there, Joe, who's brilliant, cut this for me for my wedding.
Very nice. So this is your wedding suit.
This is my wedding suit.
We're going to get on with wedding in black tie.
Well, it's one half of my wedding suit because I also went overboard and had a smoking jacket, which I changed into.
Very good. I did morning suit and then lounge suit.
Yeah, there we go. I think more men should feel that they should be allowed to change during their wedding. But
if you make more changes than your wife, I think you've done very, very well. That's a very good thing. Okay, so we sorted the jacket. In theory, few embellishments.
Yes.
You don't want any sort of half belts at the back like I do with my lounge suits. You don't want any, buttons wise, you can, in theory, just have a single button.
Yes.
But I know that you've gone with four, and I actually do think that's smarter. I do like that.
Yeah.
This has got a turn back cuff and no buttons whatsoever.
Which is very smoking jackety. Very nice.
Very smoking jackety.
The buttons, if you're going to wear them, should be covered in the same fabric.
Which is actually an important distinction between lounge suits and black tie or dinner suits, is that covered buttons is a must for dinner suits. And
to your point about not having any kind of pleats or half belts or embellishments on it, because it's not a sporty garment.
Yeah.
It's a dress garment. Traditionally, black tie is semi-formal and white tie is full dress.
Yeah.
No flaps on your pockets. That's the other thing.
Yes.
Or if you have flaps, tuck them in.
Now, yes, but also traditionally no vents.
Indeed.
Now, vents are, for those who are listening or watching, they are those sort of slits at the side of a jacket. And I should say this now because this is a particular rule. Do not get single sort of center vents. I don't like them. If you've got that, I don't like it because that is for riding. If you're not riding a horse, then you shouldn't be having it. And it makes your bottom look bigger than it actually is. So take it from me, it's not flattering. Trousers.
Yes.
You want them high-waisted.
Yes.
Ideally double-pleated. You want braces.
Yep.
Actually, generally in trousers, you need braces. No turn-ups.
No.
That is, so despite the fact that I've turned back cuffs because I'm wearing a smoking jacket, I would not recommend them really for your traditional jacket. Certainly not on trousers. But then there is that interesting satin band that goes right up the side of the leg.
So braiding is traditional. Again, this comes from in the history that I always find quite interesting, particularly of British tailoring, that it kind of always somehow ends up coming back to military uniform.
Yeah.
So the braid on a military dress uniform was echoed in the dinner suit trouser.
Yeah.
So traditionally for black tie, you have one braid. For white tie, you have a pair of braids.
Yes.
And that's the distinction.
Correct.
And then if you would like to, and you may or may not be able to see, you can have you can pick up the same grosgrain that's on your lapels and your buttons, or the same silk on your trouser waistband. Talking of waistbands, I'm loving how nerdy this is. This is just superb.
Yeah, but it's almost not nerdy enough. I think you could go.
Cummerbunds is another thing that I think a lot of guys don't quite know what it is, what it's for, how to wear it.
Yeah.
So a cummerbund is obviously that sort of sash of pleated silk that you can wear around your waist. You've got to wear it around your waistline to cover a high-waisted trouser. There's no point wearing it down on your hips if you've got a low-cut trouser. It doesn't look right.
No.
You only wear them with a single-breasted dinner jacket.
Yep.
Which is why we are both in double-breasteds and we don't have them on.
Correct.
And you must always wear them. And this is the thing that I used to find guys would always ask me. So I hope this is helpful. You always wear them with the pleats up.
Up.
Because traditionally, you would tuck your ticket stubs into the pleats when you went off to the opera or the operetta or something of that nature. So pleats always up, but only wear it with a single-breasted jacket.
And I would suggest to anybody who is a member of a army regiment, a club, or anything, if you've got a sort of a version with colours on it, wear it.
Yes.
Really great.
Yes.
The best I've ever seen is an old Indian regiment called Skinner's Horse. And the light dragoons today in the British Army are they're sort of sister regiments, really, and they're sort of friendly, like how cities can be twinned, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So sort of a twinned regiment. And they are allowed to wear it. And I've seen them wear it, and it looks incredibly smart, but it's kind of gold, blue. I mean, it's fabulous looking.
Amazing, yeah.
It really stands out.
But again, that's kind of interesting, isn't it? Because while we would say you never change the colour of your bow tie, actually something down here that kind of breaks the top half and bottom half is kind of interesting.
It looks terrific. And I think those sort of subtle differences are kind of key, because if you did that up here and wore a Skinner's Horse bow tie, I would be like, no, don't do that.
100%.
And in fact, I think when people sort of ask you about sort of my style, I think it's so long as I'm getting sort of as close as humanly possible to military attire, but a civilian version of it without kind of dipping into stolen valor or anything like that, that's when I'm in my happy place. And now a word from our sponsors. Brigg umbrellas have been a part of the Swain family since the 9th of February 1943. Thomas Brigg & Sons were facing the uncomfortable reality that their Paris flagship was under occupation by some rather bad jackbooted eggs. The wartime amalgamation formed what became Swain Aideney Brigg. Today, simply Swain, now in its 276th year. This is not retro nostalgia. This is a house that has quietly equipped London gentlemen since before the United States of America existed. It began with Charles Brigg, born in 1783, trading as a plumassier or feather maker, decorating hats, fans and dresses. His son Thomas opened at 23 St James's Street, adding parasols to the repertoire, right among the fashionable clubs and royal palaces. It flourished at that address and would become the Brigg London address for the next 115 years. Now, socially speaking, the umbrella's rise is fascinating. In the 17th and 18th centuries, a man signalled his status with a cane or walking stick, part accessory, part weapon to fend off vagabonds. The umbrella gradually usurped it. Not immediately, mind you. Carrying one suggested you couldn't afford a carriage or sedan chair to shelter you. Social snobbery delayed adoption. Eventually, the narrative flipped. The umbrella became a display that you were not encumbered by trade tools or parcels. Along with the bowler hat, it became the archetype of the British gentleman around the world. It became common for army subalterns to carry them around to protect them from the inclement weather or the European battlefield. The Duke of Wellington, however, who was usually indifferent to the ways his officers chose to dress, drew the line at umbrellas. Captain Grunau of the Grenadier Guards wrote, "His Grace does not approve of the use of umbrellas during the enemy's firing and will not allow gentlemen's sons to make themselves ridiculous in the eyes of the army." Going on to say, "The Guards may, in uniform, when on duty at St. James's, carry umbrellas if they please, but in the field it is not only ridiculous, but unmilitary. This is the reason why young officers are expected to step out in bowler hat and umbrella in lieu of a sword when leaving Wellington Barracks in London today." Fast forward to Arnhem, 1944, Major Digby Tatham Water, a British officer in the Paras, carried an umbrella into Operation Market Garden. He reportedly disabled a German armoured car by jamming it through the viewing slit and poking the driver in the eye. Later, escorting a chaplain across open ground under its canopy, reassuring him, "Don't worry about the bullets, I've got an umbrella." Back to Brig. The interwar years cemented the umbrella as non-negotiable for the professional squire, just as Brig were establishing themselves as arguably the finest umbrella makers in London. Their use of Malacca and Wangi woods was not incidental. These woods regrow stronger when cut, a quietly poetic material for a generation of wounded officers rebuilding themselves after the Great War. Today, Swain's umbrellas are still handmade in England, the leather goods crafted on New Bond Street, hats and umbrellas in Leicestershire. Small workshops, skilled hands, no factory theatre. They will tell you, with some justification, that the Brig umbrella has no real comparative in the market. It is not designed to be replaced, it is designed to be inherited. And that idea of inheritance is key, because Swain has long been associated with royalty, politicians and icons of cinema. But what makes it compelling is that it was historically the go-to London gentleman's brand because reliability became the calling card of British heritage brands rather than ornamentation. Which brings us to hats. Herbert Johnson, the hatting arm of Swain, opened on New Bond Street in 1889 after a gust of wind reportedly dislodged the future Edward VII's hat. A young Johnson restored it with such deftness that the Prince encouraged him to open a shop. To give you a sense of how these brands have witnessed history, a Herbert Johnson top hat was recovered from the wreckage of the Titanic. Herbert Johnson was something of a Jeeves character and advised customers on when, where and how to wear his hats. Military headdress became part of the business at the turn of the 20th century, and this is still a core part of their work on Bond Street. Screen credits followed. Peter Sellers as Trilby for Inspector Clouseau, John Stee's bowler in The Avengers. They also made Sterling Moss's racing helmet, and of course, Indiana Jones, whose hat is as much a part of the character as the whip. When the film was revived in 2008 and again in 2023, the studio returned to Herbert Johnson to recreate that fedora. The most famous fictional inventor in cinema still wears a hat rooted in British craftsmanship. That continuity matters, because Swain today isn't frozen in aspic. A travel range is coming, trunk shows in Dallas and New York, a presence in Montreux and soon in Beverly Hills and Paris. Still British, but increasingly international. The brand describes this year's campaign as a quiet authority. I rather like that, because true authority is about composure, not attention-seeking, and composure, particularly in Britain, has always been where our power calmly lies. Why do you think black tie resonates as a sort of go-to dress code?
I think we all like feeling a little bit special, don't we? And it's sort of, it is as special as it gets today, really. And you know, a part of me thinks it'd be great fun if we were all still wearing white tie and tails, but we don't. Black tie is the thing. Yeah. There's something really interesting, isn't there? And again, in this idea that black tie used to be sort of, it was considered the casual option, or the option that you only wore with friends, or the option that you only wore at informal dinners for a long, long time. And yet today it has morphed to a place where it is the pinnacle of, of perceived
100%.
Formality.
Some people don't realise that there is a white tie.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah. I love that. I'm not going to get the anecdote quite right, but there's a tremendous, I always hone in on this, as a really lovely sort of well-observed moment and little bit of writing. There's a moment in Downton Abbey where, Hugh Bonneville, Lord Grantham, comes down to dinner at home with the family for the first time at some point in the 1920s in a dinner suit, not in his white tie and tails that he starts the whole programme in. and everyone is absolutely shocked and appalled. And Maggie Smith, the Dowager Countess, says something like, "Are we going to a barbecue or something?" And that's not quite the right quote, but it captures that attitude of, oh my goodness, this is new and disruptive and almost inappropriate.
Yeah.
So I love the fact that that's where it started, and then today it is sort of so prim and proper, but actually, so many men don't get the opportunity to wear it so often. It's now this kind of weird arcane thing with all these rules and regulations that we don't quite all understand necessarily.
Of course, the great figure is James Bond. And all posters for every James Bond film is him in black tie.
Yeah. If you're into clothes, the thing that you are most interested in when a new Bond film comes out is or a new Bond is announced, is what is his interpretation of a black tie going to be?
Yeah.
How is he going to show up and play with it? And actually, to the franchise's absolute credit, from a technical, nerdy, I'm giving you Mark's perspective, they always get the codes and the sort of do's and don'ts spot on, but they always kind of leave room for a little bit of personal expression.
Or criticism from me.
Who's
You know what, the coolest scene in all of film is when Sean Connery, that first time he says Bond, James Bond, when he's at the table playing Chemin de Fer. It's a tiny bow tie. I think the lapels are too thick. I think the turn-back cuffs are too thin. But that's entirely subjective.
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, what's the result? He looks amazing. At the same time, I didn't really like Roger Moore's see-through shirt that he wore for Octopussy.
No.
It didn't look great.
But there's something interesting in there, because those are expressions within the kind of spectrum of black tie that are relatively rooted in a fashion moment. So you've got Connery sort of debuting Bond in the I'm going to say mid-60s, roughly, when the mod suit is a thing and everything is very nipped in. Lapels are super slim. It's all about slim lines and trim cuts, right? So the black tie reflects that, but it doesn't necessarily therefore age that well.
Yes,
you've got.
But at the same time, throw things at you, saying having an opinion. The makers of the suits back then were not fashion designers; they were tailors. Cyril Castle, Dougie Hayward, who made Roger Moore's and Connery suits, they were traditional tailors.
Yes, but they still responded to changes in silhouette, right?
Yeah.
So if you think about Hardy Amy's is this huge proponent in the 60s of slimming everything down.
Yeah, he did, yeah.
Edward, this suit is interesting because it's based on a style of suit that Edward Sexton used to call semi-drape, which basically means room in the chest, but without making it too huge.
Yeah.
And that's a style that he learnt to cut in the 50s at Kilgour, French and Stanbury, which is a tailor that's no longer there on Savile Row. So he learned to make everything big and voluminous and kind of drapey in the 50s. And then the 60s come in and everything just goes razor sharp and slim and Sean Connery.
Yeah.
And there are, I think, some kind of nuances in how black tie sort of evolves through the decades in terms of silhouette.
Yes.
But it's interesting to me that the two that you've picked out as not aging well are kind of rooted more in the fashion of the moment.
Yeah.
Whereas I think you could argue, and I have actually quite a lot of bugbears about the Tom Ford era of Bond dressing. I don't think Daniel Craig. I think the Daniel Craig Bond films are great fun. I thoroughly enjoy them and return to them. And I think he was a brilliant Bond, but I think the wardrobe wasn't quite at the standard it should have been in a lot of instances.
In loads of instances, it's always too tight.
Yeah.
He never wore a bloody pleat, that man. Unbelievable. No. I mean, it's sort of extraordinary. If you're sorry, I need to compose myself. If you're a kind of action man, you want pleats.
Yeah.
Because restrictive trousers are they'll rip.
It's
the stupidest thing. You need room. You need, as much give as possible.
Yeah.
But they insisted on making it tighter and tighter and tighter.
Super snug.
Now, it doesn't matter that Daniel Craig was jacked. It doesn't matter.
No.
Because it's good tailoring covers for that. In the same way that people always say that, Edward VII, his button popped off his, waistcoat, and that's why everyone undoes the bottom button of their waistcoat. No, that's not what happened. Henry Poole was his tailor. They know how to make waistcoats for bigger people.
Yeah.
It didn't elude them. Edward VII wasn't like the only fat guy in that era. So they were able to sort of deal with that. It was because he was riding, it thought it's more comfortable, so he undid it. And so everybody else did it. That's why he did it. But the point is, the idea of having a bond that, you know, it's super tight.
Yeah.
It just wasn't great.
It's
And you think back to, I mean, not necessarily black tie, but you think back to that three-piece suit in Goldfinger, or actually, tell you what, in Casino Royale, his dinner suit was not Tom Ford, it was Brioni. And Brioni had come off a mega good run with Pierce Brosnan, that fabulous double-breasted navy jacket with the gold buttons in GoldenEye. Brioni did a great job. And that tuxedo, I remember I was in the cinema when watching that. And there was that moment where it was just after Eva Green said, there are dinner jackets and there are dinner jackets. This is the latter. That moment. And then he appears from side of camera into the middle of the shot wearing his tuxedo. And the entire audience went, and at that point, I knew that clothes did something that I hadn't considered in the past before, that they, like how when you hear a wonderful crescendo in music, whether it's cortisone or dopamine, whatever it is that got set off, that set it off for the entire audience in a way that it did. None of the gunfights or anything did. A beautifully made suit, in the same way that when the Romans made statues and they knew how to flatter the shoulders, the hips, the neck, the waist, all that, and it was a thing of true beauty. That was exactly what happened at that moment.
Mm.
And this is what Great Close can do, and the tuxedo is right at the top of that.
Yeah.
So I wonder what will happen next, because obviously we've had our bond of tightness killed off.
Yes.
Spoiler alert. What do you think is going to happen next?
Well, what
do you think should happen next?
What do I think should happen? Well, the only thing I think that has sort of been announced is that they're writing the next Bond to be a prequel. So it's kind of going to be the origin story. It's going to be Commander Bond, I think. So he might be in mess dress at some point.
That would be good.
Which they're going to have to get right.
I love that. Naval mess dress is, I'm trying to think. Yeah, it is.
Or it'll be uniforms number 1 or number 2, won't it? Depending on, I don't know a huge amount about naval dress uniform.
Have these shell jackets where they're basically sort of cut off around the top of the waist.
Right.
Which has all sorts of other stories, but I won't bother going into
that. So that'll be quite fun. Presumably they're gonna have to. I mean, you have to give Bond a black tie moment. It doesn't really matter whether.
No, I think that's the thing with Bond. There has to be that.
Yeah.
My assumption is that when they announce the next Bond, there's going to be a picture of him wearing black tie.
Yes, one would expect so.
Now, it would be hugely disappointing if, with all the, I mean, my guess is that the next Bond girl is going to be called Aleks. And that because Amazon own it, you see,
Very
and
good.
you know, there's going to be all sorts of that going on. But if they don't choose a British designer, I'd be hugely disappointed. My hope is that they go with someone like Simon Holloway at Dunhill.
Yes,
because I think that he would do an amazing job. Now he knows how to use a pleat.
That's a great idea.
Yeah,
that's a really good idea. It should be a British brand, really, shouldn't it? Owning that.
Here's my appeal to David Heyman.
So we're saying the next Bond, pleats, please.
Pleats, please.
Yeah. Don't paint the suit on.
Correct.
I was wondering, we've not had a double-breasted dinner suit for a while, have we?
But do you know why?
Why?
Because you can't get out a gun easily if you wear double-breasted.
What if make it a low one like mine?
Look,
buttons on the
If
hip.
they did a 6x1 like this one here, 6x1, I'd love it.
It'd be glorious.
Yes. Or just don't have any action.
Yes, or he just
have pure elegance and maybe a bit of sex,
a karate specialist or something. He doesn't need a gun.
Yeah.
Kills people with his umbrella.
He's on a boat. He's in the Navy.
Yeah.
Bang, bang.
Yeah. We should write a Bond film.
I mean, it's writing itself at the moment.
Karate, Navy, bang, bang. There you go.
Colourful cummerbund, a naval cummerbund.
Yes, indeed. Yeah. Regimental cummerbund.
This is being wired straight to David Heyman's office. The great producer of Bond now. He's the new producer.
Right.
And then watch. Yeah. Now, here's the interesting thing. There are people out there who say that you should never wear a watch with black tie. And I would say that's bollocks. It's bunkum.
Yes.
Anyone
completely agree.
who says that is one of those people who think that no brown in town is something you should listen to as well.
Yes.
It's, you know, those sort of rules that people have suggested might be around before, but for me, just
Yeah,
should
they
be totally
no
debunked.
longer stand. Yeah.
Dress watches, have been around as long as wristwatches.
Yeah.
And so since the beginning of people wearing wristwatches, they were designed for the purpose of wearing in formal settings.
Absolutely.
With beautiful black leather straps.
Yeah.
Nice and
Small,
thin.
discreet.
Small, discreet.
Which is the key to getting it right today, right? I mean, we're both in relatively small,
so this is a fun
dressy
one.
times pieces, right?
This is a fun one. This was my grandfather's, and this is from the 1950s. It's a Longines, and it was, at the time, I believe, the thinnest watch in the world.
Tremendous. That's a lovely thing.
That's a very cool thing.
Yeah. So you can absolutely do it.
You can absolutely do it, and I recommend you do it. But just, you know, probably stick with the slim.
Yeah, small, slim, elegant, probably gold.
Yeah.
But no, I completely agree. You can absolutely wear a watch.
Ideally match, if you're wearing any other metal like studs, ideally match the metals.
Yes, always. And actually, there's another interesting little nuance in there, which is I am sat here right now, I will confess, for any absolute sticklers out there, I am breaking one rule.
Studs.
Yes. For black tie, traditionally, one never wears studs. You wear a covered placket.
You wear a covered placket. Actually, shirts are quite an interesting topic.
Yes.
So shirts, we're wearing very different shirts.
Indeed.
So traditionally, these shirts should have a bib.
Yeah.
These bibs can be one of three things: pleated, like you have; ruffled, like Warren Beatty wore; or Marcella.
Sort of
bib.
Cotton piqué.
Yes, piqué. It's kind of like, it's kind of...
It's like a mesh almost.
Yeah, it feels sort of tougher.
Yeah.
Yes, exactly.
And that has its origins from a starched shirt front.
Correct.
Because all dress shirts used to be starched within an inch of their life.
My preference is that.
Mm-hmm.
I know yours is...
I like pleats.
However, the other sort of curve ball, as I believe they refer to it in sporting occasions like baseball, is this silk shirt.
Yeah, which is lovely.
But worn only with a smoking jacket.
Yes.
And I probably would say don't wear a bibbed, pleated or piqué shirt with a smoking jacket. I would say only wear a silk shirt with a smoking jacket. I think because silk is actually quite a sort of flimsy fabric, and it just that relaxed sense of it, and also it's ivory. It's not white.
Yes, same here. Off-white.
If you want to go bespoke, there are a few.
Yep.
But you've got choice. You've got, let's start with Jermyn Street. You've got Emma Willis.
Yeah.
Who probably makes the sexiest shirts, but if you're in your 20s with a six-pack and like in really great shape, that works much better for you than for me, who needs a little bit more forgiveness with my dad bod. So Stephen Lacter does he's terrific.
Yeah.
Chamberlin Asser.
Yeah.
But I think for pure traditionalism, Bud.
Okay, Bud's the place for you.
Do you think?
Well, this is Emma Willis.
Yep.
Ready to wear.
Which is why you look so sexy and
you.
youthful.
And I really do. For formal wear, I really rate Emma's shirts. I think they're beautiful. They're really well made. They're made in the UK. Yes, they're expensive, but they're superb quality.
This is the thing. People sort of need, I think people. Yeah, I know that there's. If you looked at the operation she has in Gloucestershire, for example, everything makes sense.
Yeah, it's glorious. It's just glorious.
Then there's Charvet in Paris.
Yes.
I think probably the ultimate shirting destination, full stop.
Yeah.
My understanding is that they have something like 400 shades of white shirt and then 72 shades of black.
I mean, if you're into, classic clothes, regardless of whether you're looking for a shirt or not, when you are in Paris, you've got to go to Charvet.
Yes.
It's almost like a pantheon of sort of tradition, isn't it?
A friend of mine is a brigadier in the British Army, and his great treat is to go to Paris and get a Charvet boutonniere.
Lovely.
for Christmas. That's his Christmas treat. It's worth talking about shoes as well.
Yes.
So we're both wearing our patent leather. I say yours are slippers rather than pumps.
They are technically slippers, yes.
Mine is a pump, largely because of the lovely little bow on there. These are Graziano and Girling, and they are superb and basically modelled on what the king wore at the coronation, except he took off the bow and put on this sort of lovely buckle, as is tradition. And so you can do patent leather Oxfords, you can do suede.
Yes.
So if you want to, or velvet slippers.
Yeah.
So suede or velvet slippers. Well, actually not suede slippers, really. You can do suede, like black suede Oxfords or something, actually quite nice.
Yeah.
But I would say the less material on the shoe for black tie, the better.
Absolutely, yeah. You don't want lots of broguing and things that are kind of associated with, broguing traditionally is sort of all about sort of being out and about around town. And you want something really simple.
Yeah, and anything that isn't shiny, don't.
Yeah.
It does look bad.
Yeah.
If you haven't shined your shoes properly.
I would say if you're embracing black tie for the first time, and you really want to go for it and you want to get the whole lot, just get a really simple patent leather slipper or pump like this. It's the safest place to start, and completely correct.
Now, there are debates on Tinternet about what the most formal versions of black tie are. Some say it's most formal is three-piece, then double-breasted, then single-breasted. Some people say literally the opposite.
Yeah.
What do you think?
I think, and I'm going to caveat this so that I'm not dragged over hot coals. It's much of a muchness today.
Yeah, I know.
Really.
Yeah.
But I would say three-piece, most formal. To me, I agree with the. I agree with the
going
masses.
with the crowd. See, okay. So my feeling is thus. I think that a single-breasted jacket and trousers, despite the fact that it's the simplest, is the original. And that is what Edward VII commissioned, or Bertie commissioned. And therefore, as the OG, I would sort of always give that the precedent. See, I don't wear that. I wear double-breasted, not because I'm looking to, be consciously less formal and stuff, but I do think that has to sort of take precedent. And also with the cummerbund and stuff, it just feels that much better. And I don't know, a waistcoat's so much of a muchness as well. That's the thing.
I do like your logic. I'm persuaded by that argument. The original has to kind of stand on the pedestal of its own.
Yeah.
I guess this leads us on to the other thing about black tie. I think there is often men feel that it's not something you necessarily need to pay too much attention to or get right, because everyone in the room is just in a black suit and a white shirt and a black bow tie.
100%.
But actually, if, and let's face it, we are talking about a very, very niche pursuit here. But if you really want to embrace it and have a bit of fun with it and you're into your clothes, the subtleties of it are what make it so special.
Yeah.
And absolutely add up to a sum that is greater than its parts. So that beautiful single-breasted, one-button, peak or shawl lapel dinner jacket with a lovely, evening trouser with the braiding, with all the nice kind of satin details, and a really nice shirt, and a bow tie that you've tied yourself, that's black, that matches your facings. All these little things and a proper dress shirt, I think, do create something that almost imperceptibly is so much more beautiful and so much more elegant and so much more noticeable, but it's so subtle. That's what makes it special.
Yeah.
So this is almost my kind of plea for any bloke who's thinking about really having a bit of fun with black tie. Just figure out your own personal way of doing the classic in the best possible way.
Yeah.
And of paying attention to the details, because it absolutely makes a difference. And everyone in the room, they might not be able to put their finger on why, but they will notice it. and they will sense it.
Speaking of fashion statements, why do you think that people sort of rebel against it so much on the red carpet?
That's a great question.
Thank you.
I'll
try and get one in.
It's fashionable to rebel against things, right?
That's true.
You know, that is the nature of fashion, is that you try new things and you experiment, and sometimes you break things. And I'm sure there are there's a lot of A-listers and a lot of stylists that want to try and make a kind of a fashion statement. I also guess these things just depend on your point of view, right? Personally, I really struggle with fashion statements, like using black tie to make a fashion statement, because it is something codified that's been around for over 100 years, and you know, mankind has had 100 years to figure out what about it works and what doesn't work. So you're probably not going to improve on the formula at the BAFTAs. I always think the celebrities that just sort of stick to the rules and execute them well tend to look the best.
And there are very few of them, though. That's the thing.
Yeah.
I mean, let's say Gary Cooper.
Yeah.
For me, is the greatest dressed man of all time, right? Just look at him in black tie and just think, you know what?
Yeah, I'll do that.
Do that.
Yeah. There's no shortage of reference points for really great. And the other thing is, you know, I understand completely the want to express personality through a dress code like black tie. But I think my personal take on that is the way to do it is with subtlety.
Yeah.
So enjoy and embrace the subtleties and the nuances of it. You don't need to turn up in a red jacket if everyone else is in a black or a midnight blue.
Because especially if it ends up just looking like you've had clothes put on you by a stylist.
Yeah, I agree.
Because if you do that, then there's no personality at all, because you've just been told what to do.
Yeah. It's also, because it's fundamentally a dark suit, it's all about silhouette. It's about the kind of lines of the body that it kind of paints on you.
Yeah.
So it's as much about paying attention to proportion and kind of understanding what flatters you as it is, you know, understanding that I need to wear a certain kind, or I should wear a certain kind of lapel, and I will gravitate towards these details.
Yeah.
You know, I struggle when you see a red carpet look that is kind of deliberately playing with proportion, because it is therefore by definition almost certainly not going to flatter.
Yeah, I mean, I did a whole thing on the Golden Globes for the Rake, and you know, everyone was sort of talking about how wonderful Jacob Elordi is and his Bottega Veneta, but God, it was baggy, and like there was, I mean, the amount of excess material at the bottom of the trousers, you know, so it just. It was just so much, and and then along comes Chris Pine, absolutely immaculate, fully tailored, looked perfect. Nobody said a fucking word.
You could argue, and I would like to think, but then I would say this, that actually you almost want no one to say a word, because that sort of means you've got it right. Yeah. No news is good news, as they say.
Yeah. I still think probably the best looking example of black tie that I've ever seen is a three-piece, and it's Harrison Ford in Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom.
Yes.
Where he's wearing a white dinner jacket.
Yeah. Red carnation.
Beautiful, big, sort of plump red carnation, black waistcoat, black trousers, and was immaculate. Now, it's Harrison Ford. It's unfair. Like, you know, it's hard. But, you know, what he did was as good, if not better, than what Bond ever did.
Yeah. Do you know, I mean, I agree with you.
Obviously, Humphrey Bogart in Casablanca.
So that's the one for me. And there's something quite interesting about that black tie, because obviously it's a low buttoning, double-breasted, white, off-white, sort of tropical weather appropriate dinner jacket, which I loosely reference the proportions of in this suit, because I've always loved that jacket. It's a really sort of seminal reference for me. But he sort of spends that whole film somehow being quite disheveled.
Yeah.
And there's a really lovely kind of tension in his personal style and the wearing of that jacket, which I love. And having acknowledged that Harrison Ford looks absolutely tremendous in the Temple of Doom, I can't get my head around a white dinner jacket. I've tried it. It's personally not for me. It can look incredibly elegant. I think anyone who wants to do it, have fun with it.
Yeah.
These things are to be enjoyed and encouraged. I just always feel like a waiter in one.
What about pocket handkerchiefs?
Yes, nice to wear. I would say I've obviously got just a very simple little white silk in today. When in doubt, do this.
Yeah.
I sometimes wear a hanky that has a hint of colour in it with black tie. If everything else is monochrome.
Yeah.
It is one place where if you really want to, you can express a little bit of personality, but it can be too much quite easily. So I would say, by all means, wear one. You know, there's nothing in the kind of historical codes of black tie that says you can or can't wear one.
Yeah.
But keep it really simple. And if in doubt, simple little bit of white silk or a linen hanky, just a little hint of it on show. It's all you need to kind of tie the rest of it together.
Smoking jackets.
Yes. Great fun.
Great fun.
Everyone should enjoy. Who doesn't like wearing velvet?
So the whole idea behind it for anyone who's interested, and I hope it's all of you listening or watching this podcast, is that there was something called the robe de chambre, which was basically a dressing gown. Big, voluminous, sort of it's kind of like an indoor overcoat that you just sort of threw on, and that's what you'd smoke in. And over time, especially when the lounge suits started coming, they were quickly moving to make these velvet versions, but initially they'd be made to go over the top of your jacket. And the whole idea is that they would stop the smell of smoke.
Yeah, the velvet would absorb the smoke notionally.
Exactly. We saw His Royal Highness the Prince of Wales wearing his at the BAFTAs.
Yes.
Not very well.
How dare you say such a thing?
With respect to His Royal Highness, it didn't fit.
Oh.
But also, I think that he needs to not wear single-breasted anymore.
Is it, I confess, because I've been in an absolute deadline hole for about 2 weeks. I didn't watch the BAFTAs. Is he still wearing very, very skinny lapels?
Yes.
Because with the greatest of respect, if anyone is listening who can help with this, make the lapels wider.
Make the
they
lapels
are far too skinny.
Slim.
They do not flatter.
Nope.
It's not a fashion statement. It's a suit.
It's all about proportion in the sense that if you got lapels that are too thin, it makes your head look bigger.
I really hope that goes somewhere. I really want to get that message through to him. Your Royal Highness, you look fabulous a lot of the time. Please make your lapels wider.
Yes.
For the sake of the nation.
If he came out looking like Anthony Eden,
yeah, great.
I bet people would love it.
Yeah, great. Yeah.
I think, and his father knows this very well.
Yeah.
Majesty.
I didn't think I'd come onto a podcast today and critique the style of the Prince of Wales.
We do it with love.
Yes, indeed.
We do it with care.
Yeah. Please don't hang me as a traitor.
Or, yes, as a sort of interloper.
Yeah.
This sort of Serbian sort of, you're good at overthrowing kings and things.
Yeah, exactly. Some sort of Serbian dissident.
Yeah, they need to know that you weren't a dissident. You were part of you were on the king's side.
We're pro.
Serbia.
Yeah,
no, very
all for the monarchy.
Yeah, smoking jackets.
So what I like, my thing with the smoking jacket is, should we not technically call it an after dinner jacket?
In theory, yes, you should.
Which is quite nice.
Yes. Like an after 8 mint or something. It is in theory an afternoon jacket. I think that the practicality, because often these black tie events are not held in people's houses all the time anymore. It's just become part of the kind of sartorial parlance of how we.
What we're saying is, if you want to do it because they're great.
Yeah,
they're just a lot of fun.
Yeah. Now, one controversial thing that we should discuss is weddings.
Must we discuss this?
Well, the thing is, Alex, is that I have edited copy of yours, which was pretty firm about not wearing black tie at weddings. It's an Americanism. If you're not, if it's not a dinner thing, then you don't wear dinner suit. What did you wear to your wedding?
Wore this suit.
You wore black tie, didn't you?
I wore black tie, yeah.
Is that why you didn't invite me to your wedding?
Yeah, couldn't bear the thought of the tutting from the back. So
me showing up in a morning suit.
You're quite right. I have spent about 10 years if not more, as a style writer, saying I'm not terribly keen on the idea of black tie for a wedding.
Now, before we dig into why you then chose to wear black tie for your wedding, because I do want to delve into that, what was your initial objection to it?
I really struggled what to decide to wear for my own wedding. I didn't want to wear morning dress. I wear morning dress to the races a couple of times a year, and it's great fun, but it is incredibly hot and incredibly uncomfortable.
Yeah.
I couldn't figure out what I wanted to wear as a suit. And then we picked a venue, and I think this is my big caveat that hopefully gets me out of this hole, is we picked a venue that was an old Victorian music hall.
Was it called the Black Tie Arms or something?
Wilton's Music Hall in East London.
Yeah.
Faded plaster, a working theatre. The nature of a very theatrical venue, but also a venue that had no natural light because you're in an enclosed auditorium.
Yeah.
Just made black tie make sense to me. My wife was very keen on the idea, and because I had really struggled to figure out what I actually wanted to wear, it just kind of made sense. So I am, I suppose, by dictionary definition, a hypocrite.
My objection is I think in America, they think black tie is the formal thing.
Yeah.
It's not.
No.
In fact, black tie isn't even the evening formal thing.
No.
White tie is.
It was traditionally called semi-formal.
Yeah. So my slightly snobby hat on sort of being like, ha ha ha, my colonial cousins don't know the difference. There is that. But today, in a world where we want to promote the idea of dressing better. We want to take the opportunity for somebody to invest in something nice that they get a lot of use out of. I would much prefer them and much more encourage them to get something like a really perfect lounge suit made than black tie made, because they'll get loads of use out of it and they'll get a lot of love out of it.
I completely agree with that.
Whereas the suit, the black tie, they'll hang it up and they may take it out once a year from there, but they'll fall in love with this sort of lounge suit, if it's a navy classic lounge suit, that they wear over and over again, and they get to basically they let it just, they come in sync with it into some way, and it sort of it kind of finds its sort of groove with you, and there's a symbiosis to some extent that happens between a suit and the wearer, which doesn't happen with something that you take out once a year or twice maybe.
The other bit of advice I would offer is, so much of our conversation today has been about not overdoing it with a fashion statement.
Yeah.
You absolutely don't want to look back on your photos in 20 years' time and go, why did I wear a fashion suit? Why did I wear something that was bright green or pink or sky blue?
Yeah, totally.
Just get a really, really beautiful dark blue suit or something similar that's just going to look immaculate, look as good when you show your kids or your nephews and nieces in 30 years' time in the photos as it does on the day. So I agree with all that advice. You're quite right. I remain a hypocrite.
I remain Tom Chamberlin, and this has been The Luxury Dispatch, the podcast that explores the people, traditions, and objects that shape the world of luxury. My thanks to Aleks Cvetkovic for helping us navigate the enduring codes of black tie, and for reminding us that true elegance often lies in understanding the rules before deciding how closely to follow them. And thank you to Swain for supporting this episode and their continued commitment to crafting some of the finest accessories to accompany formal wear. If you've enjoyed today's episode, please do like, subscribe, and leave a comment. We read every one. Tell us your own experiences of black tie, the traditions you hold dear, or the worlds of luxury you would like us to explore next. Thank you for listening, and happy dressing.